The nameplate stared back at me, Charlie Wilson, low-educated fake dad. My hands trembled as I stood frozen at the reception entrance. 23 years of single fatherhood, countless sacrifices, and endless love reduced to mockery at my own son's wedding. The laughter of the bride's wealthy family echoed in my ears. I wanted to leave, but this was Jason's day. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Dad." Jason's voice cracked. Before I continue, if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're from. I never imagined my son's wedding day would become the most humiliating and ultimately transformative experience of my life. My name is Charlie, and at 43, I have spent over 2 decades being the best father I could to my son Jason. His mother walked out when he was just 2 months old, leaving nothing but a note saying she was not cut out for motherhood. Just like that, I became both mom and dad to a helpless infant. While working full-time in construction, those early years were a blur of exhaustion. I would work 10-hour shifts, pick up Jason from the neighbor who watched him then, spend my evenings learning how to warm bottles properly and decipher different cries. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed. My own parents had passed away years before, and with no siblings, I had no family support system to rely on. As Jason grew, so did the challenges. I worked multiple jobs to keep us afloat. Weekdays were spent on construction sites, weekends at a local hardware store. Any spare hours were filled with side jobs. My hands were permanently calloused. My back always aching, but I never complained. Every dollar meant better opportunities for my son. Despite my limited formal education, having dropped out after high school to support my own family, I made sure Jason understood the value of learning. Our modest apartment always had books even when we had to choose between new shoes and school supplies. I attended every parent-teacher conference, often arriving straight from work still in my dusty clothes and steel-toed boots. When Jason was 10, I made the difficult decision to move us to a better school district. The rent nearly broke us, and I had to add a third job delivering newspapers at 4 in the morning. But seeing Jason thrive made every sacrifice worthwhile. He made friends easily and showed a natural aptitude for mathematics that amazed his teachers. What I lacked in educational background, I tried to make up for with practical life lessons. I taught Jason to be honest, to work hard, to treat people with respect, regardless of their status, and to never judge someone by their appearance or bank account. We fixed our old truck together, learning mechanics from library books. We cooked meals from scratch when eating out was too expensive. These were the real-world skills no classroom could provide. By his senior year of high school, Jason had become everything I hoped for and more. He graduated as valedictorian, earning a full scholarship to a prestigious university. At his graduation, watching him deliver his speech in that cap and gown, I stood in the back, tears streaming down my face. That moment was worth every sleepless night, every missed opportunity, every sacrifice I had made. Jason continued to excel in college, studying finance and business. During his senior year, he met Sophia Hamilton. The first time he mentioned her, his voice changed. I knew before he did that this was serious. When he finally brought her home to our modest apartment, I was nervous, but determined to make a good impression. Sophia was beautiful, intelligent, and most importantly, she looked at my son like he hung the moon. She treated me with genuine respect, complimenting the simple meal I prepared and asking thoughtful questions about Jason's childhood. It was 6 months later when we were invited to meet Sophia's family. The Hamilton estate was exactly what I had feared. Their driveway was longer than our entire street. Their home looked like something from a magazine, with manicured gardens and a fountain in front. Inside, original artwork hung on walls that could have housed our entire apartment several times over. Mr. Hamilton, a distinguished-looking man with perfectly styled silver hair, greeted us in the foyer. His handshake was firm, but his eyes were calculating, assessing me from my weathered work boots to my self-cut hair. Mrs. Hamilton was polished and poised her smile, never quite reaching her eyes as she welcomed us. "So, Charlie, what university did you attend?" Mr. Hamilton asked over appetizers that I could not identify. "I actually went straight to work after high school, sir," I answered honestly. "Construction has been my trade for over 20 years now." "How?" Industrious Mrs. Hamilton commented, exchanging glances with her husband. And Jason mentioned you raised him alone, without any formal training in childcare. How did you manage that? Their questions continued through dinner, each one subtly highlighting the gulf between our worlds. When Mr. Hamilton asked about investment portfolios and vacation properties, I saw Jason growing increasingly uncomfortable. He jumped in several times to change the subject, but the damage was done. I felt like an exotic specimen being examined under a microscope. As the evening ended, Mr. Hamilton pulled Jason aside for a man-to-man chat, while Mrs. Hamilton showed me family photos on the wall pointing out Ivy League diplomas and generations of accomplished Hamiltons. The message was clear: my son was marrying up way up, and they wanted to make sure I understood that. The 6 months of wedding planning that followed only widened the divide. The Hamiltons insisted on controlling every aspect from the venue to the napkin colors. My modest financial contribution was politely but firmly set aside. "We have this covered, Charlie. Just focus on getting Jason to the altar on time," Mr. Hamilton told me with a patronizing pat on the shoulder. Every suggestion I offered was met with the same response. "That is a charming idea, but we have already arranged something more appropriate." After a while, I stopped offering input. This was causing Jason stress, and the last thing I wanted was to come between him and the woman he loved. 2 weeks before the wedding, I overheard Mr. Hamilton on the phone while picking up Jason from a tuxedo fitting. "Yes, everything is arranged," he was saying. "The uneducated one will be seated at the far table. No need to worry about him making a scene." I pretended not to hear, but those words cut deep. Still, I reminded myself that this was about Jason's happiness, not my pride. I would endure anything for my son, even the condescension of the Hamiltons. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect blue skies. I woke before dawn, too nervous to sleep. As I prepared for the day, I found myself looking through old photos of Jason growing up. There he was taking his first steps, riding a bike with training wheels, losing his front teeth, heading off to his first day of school with a backpack almost bigger than him. In each picture, his smile was my anchor, the reason I got up every morning and pushed through exhaustion. I carefully put on the suit I had saved for months to buy. It was not designer like what the Hamilton men would wear, but it was the best I could afford. I had practiced my father of the groom speech for weeks, writing and rewriting it on index cards that were now tucked into my jacket pocket. The wedding venue was even more extravagant than I had anticipated. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, exotic flowers adorned every surface, and uniformed staff bustled about attending to last-minute details. I felt immediately out of place, but reminded myself that I was here for Jason, not to impress anyone. I found my son in a preparation room, looking handsome and grown up in his tuxedo. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Dad, you made it." He embraced me tightly, and for a moment, I was transported back to when he was small enough to carry on my shoulders. "Would not miss it for the world, son," I replied, straightening his tie. "You ready for this?" "More than ready," he said, his eyes shining with happiness. "Thanks to you, Dad. I would not be here without everything you did for me." Those words carried me through the ceremony. Despite being seated several rows back from where parents of the groom traditionally sit, I watched with immense pride as Jason stood at the altar. When Sophia walked down the aisle, the love between them was palpable. I noticed I was not acknowledged in the ceremony program while the Hamilton family had paragraphs dedicated to their accomplishments, but I pushed the thought aside. This day was not about me. After the ceremony, guests were directed to a lavish reception in an adjoining ballroom. I walked alone while the Hamilton family clustered together, accepting congratulations and making introductions to important guests. As I entered the reception hall, I saw elaborate table settings with assigned seating cards. I searched for my name among the family tables near the front. I did not find it there. Instead, after several minutes of increasingly embarrassed searching, I found my place at a table near the back, partially hidden behind a large floral arrangement. The table was filled with names I did not recognize, none of whom appeared to be family or close friends of either the bride or groom. When I finally located my seat, I froze. The nameplate partially hidden under a cloth napkin read Charlie Wilson, low-educated fake dad. I read it 3 times, unable to process what I was seeing. This was no accident. Every other nameplate I could see was properly labeled with names and relationships. My hands began to shake. 23 years of fatherhood reduced to a cruel joke. I stood there feeling as though I had been physically struck. Then I heard laughter. Mrs. Hamilton's sister was pointing in my direction, whispering to another woman who covered her mouth to stifle a giggle. Can you believe they actually kept him involved? After everything Jason could have had with proper guidance, the words drifted across the space between us. Other guests began to notice what was happening. Some looked away in embarrassment. Others whispered behind their hands. A few of Mr. Hamilton's friends openly stared at me, assessing my off-the-rack suit and calloused hands. One elderly woman actually tutted and shook her head as if my presence was disappointing. He does not look like he belongs here, does he? A man in an expensive suit commented loudly enough for me to hear. The construction worker playing father. Sweet sentiment, but really should he be at the family tables? My first instinct was to leave, walk out the door, and spare Jason the embarrassment of having his blue-collar father make a scene at his wedding. I had endured plenty of hardship in my life, but nothing had prepared me for this public humiliation. This calculated cruelty, designed to put me in my place. As I stood there, memories flooded back of all the times I had felt inadequate as a father. The school events where other kids had two parents present. The time Jason needed help with advanced math homework that I could not understand. The Christmas I could only afford one small gift while his friends received piles of presents. Had I really been a fake dad all along? Did Jason secretly wish for someone more educated, more refined to have raised him? I swallowed hard, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. For Jason, I told myself. Endure this for Jason. This is his day, not mine. I would sit at that table with its insulting nameplate and maintain my dignity. I would not let them see how deeply they had wounded me. I reached for the nameplate, intending to turn it face down. Dad, what is wrong? I had not heard Jason approach. He stood beside me now, concern etched across his features. Before I could hide it or offer some excuse, his eyes fell on the nameplate. His expression shifted from concern to disbelief, then to something I had rarely seen on my son's face, pure, unadulterated anger. What the hell is this? He demanded, his voice carrying across the now quieting reception hall. He picked up the nameplate, his hands shaking with rage. Sophia appeared at his side, her wedding dress rustling softly. Jason, what is happening? When she saw what he was holding, her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Dad, Mother, she called out, her voice cracking with emotion. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton approached, their perfect smiles faltering as they registered the situation. Mr. Hamilton attempted to laugh it off. Now, surely this was just a mix-up with the printing. No need to make a scene. A mix-up. Jason's voice was dangerous quiet. Every other nameplate is correct. This was deliberate. I placed my hand on Jason's arm, trying to calm him. Son, it is okay. Let us not ruin your day over this. But Jason was beyond calming. He held the nameplate up for everyone to see. Would someone like to explain why my father's nameplate says, low-educated fake dad, the man who worked 3 jobs to put me through school, the man who never missed a single school event, the man who taught me everything I know about integrity and hard work? The reception hall had fallen completely silent now. Hundreds of eyes were fixed on our unfolding drama. Mrs. Hamilton stepped forward, her voice honey-sweet but tinged with panic. There must have been a terrible mistake by the staff. We would never. Save it, Sophia interrupted, standing firmly beside Jason. This is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Mr. Hamilton's face had reddened considerably. Now, listen here, young man. This is clearly a misunderstanding, and you are embarrassing the family with this display. Embarrassing the family, Jason repeated incredulously. You want to talk about embarrassment? How about the fact that my wife's family just tried to humiliate the best man I know? I tried again to defuse the situation. Jason, please. This is your wedding day. Let us just move past this. But my son was not finished. He turned to address the entire reception, his voice clear and strong. I want everyone here to know something about my dad. This man worked 16-hour days, so I could have opportunities he never had. He learned to cook clean and run a household on his own when my mother abandoned us. He read parenting books during his lunch breaks. He moved us to a better neighborhood so I could attend a good school even though it meant taking on extra work. Jason's voice broke with emotion as he continued. When I was sick, he used his vacation days to stay home with me. When I wanted to play baseball, he coached my team despite never having played himself. When I got into college, he framed my acceptance letter and carried it in his wallet until it fell apart. Sophia squeezed Jason's hand supportively as he went on. My father may not have a fancy degree, or a mansion, or a trust fund, but he gave me something far more valuable. He showed me what it means to be a man of character, to keep your promises, to put others before yourself, to face challenges with dignity. Mr. Hamilton attempted to interject, but Jason silenced him with a look. My father never once treated me as a burden, despite the incredible sacrifice I represented. He celebrated every victory with me and helped me learn from every failure. He is not a fake dad. He is the realest, most authentic person in this room. Then Jason turned to me, his eyes wet with tears. Dad, let's show them what real family means. The silence that followed Jason's words was deafening. Mr. Hamilton's face had turned an alarming shade of purple, while Mrs. Hamilton looked as though someone had thrown ice water on her perfect composure. I stood there, overwhelmed by my son's defense, unable to find words. This is ridiculous. Mr. Hamilton finally spluttered. It was clearly a staff error. You are making a mountain out of a molehill. A staff error, Sophia challenged, stepping forward in her wedding dress. Every single other nameplate is perfect. This was intentional and you know it, Mrs. Hamilton attempted damage, control her social smile firmly in place. There has been a misunderstanding. Perhaps one of the catering staff thought it would be amusing. We certainly had nothing to do with this tasteless joke. It was not the staff, a young voice spoke up. We all turned to see Sophia's younger brother Thomas, a teenager who had been quiet throughout the wedding preparations. I saw Mom and Aunt Patricia replacing the nameplate this morning. They were laughing about it. Mrs. Hamilton gasped. Thomas, how dare you? But the damage was done. Guests began murmuring among themselves, and I saw several people looking at the Hamiltons with obvious disapproval. Even their friends seemed uncomfortable with this revelation. You have been undermining Charlie since the day we met him, Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. Making comments about his job, his education, his parenting. You have tried at every turn to make him feel less than, and I have had enough. I finally found my voice. Despite the hurt and humiliation, I knew this moment called for dignity rather than anger. 23 years of teaching Jason to take the high road meant I needed to walk that path myself. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton, I said, my voice steady. Despite my racing heart, I understand that I am not what you envisioned for your daughter's family. I did not attend an Ivy League school. I work with my hands for a living. I raised my son without the advantages your wealth provided. I paused, making eye contact with various guests. But being a father is not about educational degrees or bank accounts. It is about showing up every single day. It is about teaching values by living them. It is about sacrifice and unconditional love. I turned to face the Hamiltons directly. I hope that Jason and Sophia never face the challenges I did as a single parent. But if they do face hard times, I hope they remember that it is not wealth or status that gets you through, but character and love. Several guests applauded softly. Mr. Hamilton looked as though he wanted to sink into the floor, while Mrs. Hamilton's perfect makeup could not hide her mortification. Dad, Jason said quietly, Sophia and I can leave right now. We do not need to stay. I shook my head. This is your wedding day. Nothing should ruin that. I turned to the Hamiltons. I do not need an apology. What I need is for you to treat your daughter, your new son-in-law, and yes, even me, with basic human respect. Not because of what we have or what degrees we hold, but because of who we are. Mr. Hamilton cleared his throat, clearly struggling with what to say. Finally, public pressure and his daughter's glare forced his hand. We apologize for this unfortunate incident. It was in poor taste and does not reflect our true feelings. It was not sincere, but it was something. I nodded my acceptance not for his sake but for Jason and Sophia's. Now, I said, addressing the uncomfortable guests, I believe we have a wedding to celebrate. Two wonderful young people have committed to building a life together. That deserves our focus far more than this nameplate. There was a moment of hesitation, then applause broke out across the reception hall. The band began to play again, and gradually the tension started to dissipate. Jason embraced me tightly, whispering, "I love you, Dad," in my ear. Sophia hugged me next, tears in her eyes. "I am so sorry," she said. "I had no idea they would go this far." "This is not your fault," I assured her. "And it changes nothing about how happy I am that you are part of our family now." As the reception continued, something unexpected happened. Guests began approaching me, introducing themselves, engaging me in genuine conversation. A distinguished-looking man turned out to be a successful architect who had started as a construction worker. "What you built is far more impressive than any building," he told me, shaking my hand firmly. When it came time for speeches, I was still scheduled to give mine. With hands slightly trembling, I pulled out my well-worn index cards. Looking out at the sea of faces, some sympathetic, some curious, I set the cards aside. Instead, I spoke from the heart about the joy of watching my son grow into a man any father would be proud of and the happiness of welcoming Sophia into our family. I did not mention the incident. I did not take jabs at the Hamiltons. I simply celebrated my son and his bride. When I finished, the applause was genuine and warm. I saw respect in eyes that had earlier held pity or amusement. Later, during the dancing, Jason and I had our moment on the floor. As we moved somewhat awkwardly to a song that had been special to us since his childhood, he said, "You know, Dad, I have never been more proud to be your son than I was today." "I have always been proud to be your father," I replied. "Every single day." The photographer captured that moment, and it would later become my favorite image from the entire wedding. Not because it was technically perfect, but because it captured something that could not be manufactured or bought: the bond between a father and son built over thousands of small moments of love and sacrifice. The weeks following the wedding revealed surprising developments. Jason and Sophia returned from their honeymoon with clear boundaries for her parents. "We will visit for Sunday dinners," they announced, "but Charlie will be included, and there will be no more comments about his background or education." To my surprise, I received an invitation to their first Sunday dinner back. Walking into the Hamilton mansion was still intimidating, but this time Sophia met me at the door and led me proudly inside. Mr. Hamilton awkwardly offered me a drink, while Mrs. Hamilton made stilted but civil conversation. It was not comfortable, but it was a beginning. A fragile piece built on their love for their daughter and her happiness. Even more surprising were the letters I began receiving from wedding guests. A judge wrote that he had been moved by the dignity I showed and wished his own father had possessed such character. A professor admitted that despite her multiple degrees, she had learned something valuable about true education from witnessing our family dynamic. Even Mrs. Hamilton's mother sent a note expressing her disapproval of her daughter's behavior and her admiration for my restraint. Over the following months, the relationship between our families slowly transformed. It was never going to be warm friendship, but grudging respect began to replace condescension. Mr. Hamilton made awkward attempts to find common ground, asking about construction techniques, and even visiting one of my job sites. Mrs. Hamilton invited me to holiday gatherings and made a point of introducing me properly to their friends. For my part, I chose not to hold a grudge. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. Carrying anger would only burden me, not them. The real healing came through honest conversations with trusted friends. One evening, sitting on my back porch with my oldest friend Sam, I finally let myself fully process what had happened. "You know what hurt the most," I told him. Not the mockery or the exclusion. It was the implication that everything I did for Jason somehow did not count Because I did not have the right credentials. Sam nodded understanding. But you proved them wrong without saying a word. Your son is evidence of your success as a father. No nameplate can take that away. He was right. The true measure of parenting is not what others think, but the character of the child you raise. By that standard, I had succeeded beyond measure. 6 months after the wedding, Jason and Sophia shared news that put everything into perspective. They were expecting their first child. As Jason showed me the ultrasound image, his face glowing with excitement and terror, I felt a circle closing. I would be a grandfather with a chance to love a new generation. I have no idea how to be a father. Jason admitted fear, evident in his voice. I smiled. Neither did I, son. Nobody does at first. But you figure it out day by day, moment by moment, and you will have something I did not support from someone who has been there. When they asked me to help set up the nursery, Mr. Hamilton was also invited. As we assembled a crib together, awkwardly sharing tools and instructions, I realized something profound. Labels like educated or real dad ultimately mean nothing. What matters is showing up, being present, offering love without conditions. The journey from that humiliating nameplate to this moment of genuine connection taught me that our worth is never determined by others' perceptions. It is built through our choices, our resilience, our capacity for both strength and forgiveness. I may always be the low-educated father in the Hamiltons' eyes. But to Jason, I am simply dad. To my future grandchild, I will be grandpa. No qualifier needed, no explanation required. And that, more than any degree or status symbol, is the achievement that fills me with genuine pride. The ability to love without limits, to give without expectation, to stand tall, even when others try to diminish you, that is the true measure of a person. Not the judgment on a nameplate, but the impact you have on the lives you touch. If you have ever felt judged for not fitting someone else's expectations, I hope this story reminds you that your value is not determined by external validation. Have you ever stood your ground against people who tried to make you feel less than? Leave a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more real-life stories. And share with someone who might need this message today. Thank you for listening. And remember, real parenting is not about perfection, it is about love.